Never, ever remove your contingency on your development cost analysis. My name is Ritchie Clapson, I'm a chartered structural engineer, and I've been involved in the property industry now over 40 years. And in today's video, I'm going to be telling you exactly why you should never, ever remove or perhaps even reduce your contingency on your property development deal analysis. What is contingency? Well, the contingency is a number that we have in for the contingency that something might go wrong and overspend. What we normally add in is a 10% contingency on top of our construction cost. So if we had a construction cost of, say, £250,000 to do our property development, it could be a conversion, it could be a new build, it doesn't matter. But if we had a 10% contingency on there, that would be £25,000. And that contingency needs to be factored in with funding available. You need to make sure you've got funding for that. Now, what you mustn't do is you mustn't tell the contractor that there's £25,000 here, hey, off you go and spend it because we have allowed for it. But you definitely should be telling your project manager that's what you've got, but that's the limit. That is the contingency, and it should be very carefully spent. It should only be spent in extreme circumstances. But development, by its nature, is always going to throw up a surprise, particularly conversion projects. New build, sometimes you can get away with it. Sometimes you can get away with less contingency, but I'd still suggest you don't. New build has problems in the ground. Coming out of the ground is where your risk is. Once you're above ground, you're building brand new. And those costs are often much better defined. But in the ground, that's where you could use your contingency and some and more if you're not careful. So always, even on a new build, have that contingency in place. On a refurbishment, if you think about it, there's lots of unknowns. We're going to go into an existing commercial building. We're going to start stripping out walls. We're going to expose the bare structure. We might be taking up floors, taking down ceilings, exposing the bare structure. What might we find? We might find rotten timbers. We might find corroded steelwork. We might find cracks in brickwork. All of these things need addressing. All of these things need attendance. All of these things might require some of that contingency money. Equally, there could be other little areas that change or cause problems. So having that extra money, that 10% fund, is there ready. Imagine the pain if you didn't have it. Imagine if you'd fixed at £250,000 and every time there was an extra, even for £2,000, £3,000, £4,000, maybe £5,000, you've got to go out and raise and find that money. Having it in place gives you a comfort, it gives you less stress, and it's just good business management. Now, the reality should be if we properly design our projects, if we properly define our projects, and even do what we call a two-stage tender process. In fact, I'll cover two-stage tender processes in another video. Then we should, in theory, better minimize that need for that contingency. But always have it there. I've seen many a new developer who's been advised by their project manager, let's reduce contingency. Let's put it down to 2.5%. Let's put it to 5%. And then suddenly they've got a problem because they didn't budget. They didn't expect that fund to be needed. Far better to allow our full 10%, in our case, the £25,000, 10% of the 250, finance that, have that ready to draw down. The reality, if you don't draw it down, you don't pay interest on it, but it's built into the facility. And it's a far better position to be at the end of the project and have some contingency left in the bank, some money that you didn't need to spend. Maybe you're going to get to the end of your project and there's some things you'd like to do which you never planned to do. Maybe at the end of the project you think, I've got a bit of contingency left. We budgeted for that contingency. It's in the overall deal. It's funded there. The facility's there. Why don't we spend a little bit of extra money on landscaping because we think that's going to make the property sell faster. Maybe not for more money, but it might make it sell faster. In fact, I've done that. I did it on a project where we had a bit of contingency left. And what we did is we bought a whole load of pot plants and spread them all around the courtyards in the development. Nice and straightforward. We left them there. They were there for the tenants. it didn't cost a lot, but we had a contingency, but it did help and it made it more interesting to sell. So please, even if your project manager advises you to reduce your contingency, even if they say we just don't need it, always leave it in, and always leave it in as a minimum of 10% of the construction cost. Because if you don't, I'll be after you. Does that make sense? 10% minimum contingency on every single project. Please like and subscribe if you like what we do here. And even if you don't like what we do here, please like and subscribe, and then you won't miss any future videos. See you in the next video.